Hello, this video will review Crossing Healthcare Solutions Professional Fee Billing component. The Professional Fee Billing component is available as a component on the Workflow mPage. It enables providers to efficiently enter and submit charges directly from within the dynamic documentation platform. The component utilizes Cerner standard nomenclature for CPT, HCPCS, and modifiers, and also supports linking diagnoses documented within the Cerner control to the charge. It provides options for the physician, including a printed charges report or a custom interface directly to your billing system. It can provide decision support for coding, allowing you to see a history of what has been billed for the patient for the current week. This brief video will review the basics of the provider charges component. The component is available for addition to the Workflow mPage, just like any other standard component. So you can navigate over here to the menu icon, hover over components, and add the provider charges component. When you do, it'll sequence the provider charges component at the top. Since I like to drop my charges at the end of my visit, I'm going to pick it up, click it, and drag it down, because in my workflow, I typically will create a provider charge after creating my note. So it's available here. So now you see the provider charges component here in the workplace. Let me walk you through some of the major features. So the first element is the provider charges history. You can see it the previous week. You can also adjust it in settings to view up to a previous year worth of charges. You're able to hover over the charge. These are blue hyperlinks. When you do so, you'll see the active diagnoses, any modifier, and who submitted the information. So you can do that wherever the charges appear. If there's any need to error out a charge, there is a little X mark here, and that will allow you to revoke the charge. So if you click revoke, it'll ask you if you want to in fact do that, and then it'll strike it through. So you have the ability to revoke charges right from the component. The next section allows you to create a charge. Now you have two different methods that you can do that. You can type in letters, for example, inpatient, and it'll pull up all the available codes for me to choose from, as you can see. Another option would be to type in a numeric value, and that will pop up the available codes. You can see more details related to the codes by hovering over them, and it'll give you the different criteria. You also have the ability to add these as a favorite by clicking the plus sign. So we'll do that with this code 99233. When I click plus, it gives me the ability to store the CPT code in my favorite folder. It'll default it into whatever I selected, but you can also change the name here if that's of interest. So I want to call this maybe a level 3 hospital follow-up. I also have the ability to set any default modifiers if that is of interest. So maybe this is one where I work with residents. When I save it, it becomes available here in my favorites folder. So let's spend a minute on the favorites folder. Every user can create their own favorites. You can create individual codes, and again, you can hover over them to see what they mean. You can create folders and put a variety of codes within the folders. You also have the ability to rename the code. So as an example, here's 99232. If I hover over this little arrow, I have the ability to edit the name. So for example, maybe I want to call this a moderate hospital follow-up. When I click the check mark, it'll change the name to make it easier for me to know what the codes are. You can also delete the codes right from here if you're no longer using them, using the delete option. We've also built public favorites. And what the public favorites are all the common inpatient observation, consult, et cetera codes. And you can go into each of these individual folders Again, it has the codes with the descriptions, and you can select whatever code is appropriate for the particular patient. Let me go ahead and show you how to enter a code. It's really quite straightforward. You can enter it from your favorites or from the public folders. I'll do it from my favorites. So let me put in a moderate level follow-up for the patient. I just click on the charge. When that happens, this red card opens up on the workplace on the right. You'll notice that there are a few mandatory fields. These are designated by asterisks. There are also some fields that are optional in nature. So it'll default to the date of service being today. You can modify that if needed. You can associate this particular charge with a note. I'm going to associate it with my progress note from today. If there are any modifiers that you want to use, you can enter them from here. We have some recently used ones. We have some corporate built ones. We also have a fairly extensive list of other ones that are available to choose from. In this instance, I'll designate code 25. Then you have the diagnoses from the diagnosis control showing up here. You can select them individually, or you can select all of them. It will ask you to make one of them the primary. And when you do, you see the card has turned blue because now it's available for us to submit the charges. And I can submit the charge whenever I'd like. You also have the ability to work with multiple charges. In this case, I want to place a follow-up charge for yesterday since I neglected to do that. I can do it from my favorites, or I can do it from the public favorites. I'll do it from the public favorites just to show you a different workflow. So I'll go to inpatient status, follow-up, level 2. I just click on the charge. It now appears over here. What I'm actually going to do to save some clicks is I'm going to utilize my prior charge. I'm going to click Apply to All. And what that will do is it'll write all of the relevant information, including the modifier and the diagnosis, onto my new code. Then I can just go back to it, and I can change the date. And I can actually work in batch with multiple codes if I want to submit multiple charges. And when I'm done, I just click Submit Charges. And now you'll see that the 2 charges that I've placed are available here on the history for us to review. Now, at any point, if you want to see some additional information, you can go over here to this icon and click Patient Insurance Information, and that will provide any information regarding the insurance status. So you have an ability to run a provider charges report, and you do so by going up to View, navigating over to Reporting. That'll open up the provider charges report. You can double-click that. Set the time frame. We'll go back 5 days here and click Execute. When you do, a provider charges report will be available. It includes the dates of service, the last time you accessed the chart, any notes that you associated with the charges, and then, of course, the charges and any associated diagnoses. This will be for all patients that are on your list for which you've dropped charges. At this point, you can either print this, or you can download it, and then you can provide it to whoever is managing your charges. This concludes the basic features of our provider charges component for enhanced dynamic documentation. Thank you so much for your time.